Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Tech Point Africa podcast. Today, we'll be questioning what is going on between CAC and content creators in Nigeria. Are they really taxing them? Then we'll talk about Carbon's acquisition of Vella Finance. Two stories, but they are deep. I am Oluwanifemi Kolawole, and with me in the studio are the normal people. No offense, but we have a very we have a very interesting guest in the studio today. I call him Omori. Many people do that, maybe because, for reasons you will get to know. He's a legal counsel and he's a startup lawyer. Omori, thanks for joining us in the studio today.
Thank you for having me.
Can you introduce yourself?
I'm Uyilo, as people call me. I lead the team at E&C Legal, or fuller name, Ogheneruemu Company. And we're a full-service law firm, but with a strong bias or support base for startups, technology, and innovation. So I'm an unconventional attorney. Hardly find me in a suit and a tie.
Yeah. Corporate lawyers are the ones collecting the money, not litigation lawyers. I have an article to back that up.
Okay.
So we can build on one.
Believe.
That is podcast nice.
Yes, let's move from that and just dive into the stories of today. So CAC wants to tax content creators, and we are wondering, is it a misunderstanding? What is going on? Do they really want to? Because it has to do with people that have large social media following and all. So what is it about, Bolu?
Okay, so the thing with that story is you need to understand the whole context behind it, where the statement was made, why it was made. So the Corporate Affairs Commission registrar, right, made that statement during when OP paid the courtesy visit. The courtesy visit was to get merchants, POS agents registered, about 300,000 of them, right? So I guess naturally conversation moved to getting businesses registered in the country, and then he now mentioned content creators. So he was saying things around the lines of they are making a lot of money, right? But they are not paying tax, right? So getting them is more of getting them to get registered, right? Because the CAC is not a tax collector, right? So we were saying things around getting them registered, right? So that the tax collector can now tax them.
That
right?
is
yes.
FIRS
Yes,
or
FIRS.
LIRS in Lagos.
So after that, we saw news, right, on different news platforms where FIRS said they were clearing the air around the whole issue. So FIRS was now saying, we do not have any intention to start going after content creators to...
Yet.
Yes. Well, they didn't say yet, but what they did say was that they should pay tax. They should pay income tax, right? And they said what their own job is to go after corporate entities that that have revenues above 25 million naira, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones they go after to pay tax.
They must pay their tax.
So that is the whole context behind. So it's not as if it's more of like an unofficial statement. So there was something going on. There were discussions. It's not as if Nigeria is now saying, content creators, we are coming for you. You must start paying tax and things like that. So that's
you should start paying tax
eventually. But I don't think it didn't sound like something strange to me, because every other market day something comes up, especially in Lagos State, about making content creators pay their tax, register and stuff like that, so that they can be on the I wanted to say on the government payroll. I mean, paying the government. You get what I'm trying to say? So, Omari, can you tell us if there's... Okay, so they said, they are not taxing yet, but is there a possibility? Do we have a precedence?
So I think that the starting point is actually not to blur the line points.
Okay.
The Corporate Affairs Commission has no power to tax persons or corporate bodies. It's not within their purview. Taxation lies within the purview of the Joint Tax Board, which is made up of the FIRS for federal and the state internal revenue services. So I think that's the starting point of the conversation and understanding where each person's role plays. But it's good that Bolu has given a bit of a context to that conversation. And I think that the Registrar General may have been misunderstood or may have, even in his remarks, not clarified certain things. So let's clarify. What's the duty of CAC? CAC is Corporate Affairs Commission. It has a duty to register and to some extent regulate the structuring of corporate entities in Nigeria, from business names to limited liability companies to incorporated trustees to different types of corporate or limited liability, limited, unlimited, and limited by guarantee, different structures, right? But when it comes to taxation falls within the ambit of the Joint Tax Board for corporate entities, citizens of the FCT, members of the armed forces, and federal employees. It falls within the ambit of the Federal Internal Revenue Service. For persons living in the states, state employees, employees of companies, their tax regulation falls within the ambit of the State Internal Revenue Service for Lagos, LIRS as we call it. So it is this body that has the legal obligation to demand tax, right? So let's have that clear.
Yeah.
Then what's the next thing? Whether or not content creators
Should be taxed.
So here's the thing. I think that where they missed it in the conversation is not even understanding how taxation works, right? So for companies, companies are taxed by FIRS, like I pointed out. So where you hear things like company income tax, value added tax, and some other taxes, right? For individuals, you hear things like personal income tax, irrespective of whether you are working somewhere or you are self-employed or you are selling Google and Ekpa down the road.
Yeah, billing somebody.
Personal income tax, which is taxed from your personal income, right? And then for entities or individuals like the good guys here in TechPoint, whatever you earn is a percentage is deducted and paid through the State Internal Revenue Service. And that's what you I'm sure you probably have heard payee.
Yeah.
Right? And so that comes out. So when you talk about content creators, do they make income?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So the taxation for them has nothing to do with registration or incorporation. It has to do with them personally paying their taxes in the states where they are located. So the thing about it is the work is really for the internal revenue services of those individual states to find a means of encouraging residents to pay personal income tax. And guess what? There are so many rules today that you cannot access certain provisions if you do not have a tax card. The only way you can have a tax card is to pay your personal income tax.
Yeah.
For instance, if you want to apply for BTA, PTA, travel allowance, and the likes, you've got to submit your tax card. If you're doing anything in Lagos State, for instance, they'll ask you for your tax number, personal tax number. So for content creators, all that needs to be done is for them to remit their personal income tax, not to register, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you have an entity through which you are providing the services that you are providing, then it's more advisable to create a structure to it, right? So if the CAC Registrar General had spoken to the need to have a structured, creative ecosystem, right?
Mm-hmm.
That will be more
It's conversation.
apt, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to tax, the CSE has really no obligation. CSE can't tax you, right? All you do after registration is that you file your annual returns, and if there's any significant change in your company or any change whatsoever, you ensure that you file it at the Corporate Affairs Commission, which is more like a notification. But after that, I doubt that you will ever have CSE knock on your door and say, "Hey, guy, come and pay your tax."
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that, Omari and Bolu. And I love that you mentioned how state revenue services should encourage everybody, citizens that live in those states, to pay their tax. And also the kind, so I think encouraging is something some people would not abide by. And that's why sometimes they try to want to enforce. And anytime those kind of news come up, we are like, what is this? We are not even getting enough. What are you doing using the tax for? You get. But the fact that you cannot access some services without your TIN, tax identification number, I think that should make people to pay their personal income tax, even though they, like our own now, they are deducted. We don't have a choice. I just see my LIRS email. I'm like, if they give me this money, I know what I use it to do. But I would have paid it. No money. I don't know. But yes, please, let's pay our taxes.
Be a good citizen.
Forgive the government.
Even the Bible says, "Give unto Caesar that which is Caesar's,"
Yeah.
right? And unto God.
Which is us
that
pay
which is
taxes.
God.
So pay
Yeah.
taxes.
So taxes are a way of living,
Mm.
right? The adequacy of its application is a conversation for another day,
But that's what
Right.
encourage people.
right? But the thing is, the challenge oftentimes is that we see taxes as
Burden.
punishment.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we're able to change the mindset to see taxes as an obligation that
Yeah.
you've got to meet, it's just like if you've got a prepaid meter at home, you've got to recharge your units.
Or
right?
you will not use light.
Whether or not you feel the light coming in is adequate or
Or not.
whatever, you've got to recharge it, right? And so it's around that line.
Change of mindset.
Yes.
So we should not see tax as a punishment, but as an obligation.
Mhm.
So Carbon has acquired Vella Finance. Sounds like good news because I hear people congratulating them, and not just acquiring, like they were absorbed. Yes, that's the word, they were absorbed. So Jim was doing, just give us like a lowdown of what it's about.
Okay. So it's, I don't know, it's an acquihire. That's what you're going for with absorbed.
I love
So-
absorbed.
Well, absorb doesn't exactly paint the whole picture, but it's an acquihire, and basically they're getting the founders, they're getting some members of the team. So Vella Finance has been around for, I think, under 3 years, and at the time of the acquisition, they had about 8,000 merchants. So Vella Finance provides business banking and some personal banking services, and Carbon we know what Carbon has been doing for a while. They've been doing personal loans, and then in the last 2 to 3 years, they've started adding they've started adding payments, so bill payments, airtime, and all of that. And I think sometime this year they mentioned or they announced that they would now be offering business banking services. So basically, we'll probably touch on that, but basically Carbon wants to expand their business banking ambitions, and then they're saying that Vella Finance's experience and the technology they've built, the experience they've gotten, would be very integral to doing that. So right now, they're absorbing all of Vella Finance's 8,000 business customers. Individuals would also have their accounts migrated in the process. But yeah, that's like the roundup of what has happened.
Yeah, sounds like good news. Is it?
Well, it depends.
Depends on who you're asking.
Okay. Yeah, it depends on who you're asking. But I mean, generally, it looks like good news. So I don't know exactly the details because it hasn't been disclosed. We don't know how much this involved. The founders, both on Carbon's end and Vella Finance's end, they seem happy with the deal. So I'm guessing it's good news.
Okay.
The only question now remains: we would like to know the details that, like everything that went down behind the scenes. So maybe I guess it's good news.
Okay, so during the conversation that has always come up during this time where companies are struggling to survive is one of the ways companies can survive is either selling their assets, laying off, merging, acquisitions, and all. So I don't know if you can take a guess. What's like behind this acquisition? Because is it just like a relationship thing, right? Carbon could have gone on and just built business. Who built a business? This thing merchant recently, was it Money Point as a business?
Yeah,
A
yeah.
business.
Yeah. Business banking, yes.
Business
Yeah.
banking. I think another fintech.
Block, I think Block has. There are quite a few.
Yes,
Brass
so
does.
they could have gone ahead to just build it. You get it, because they said they've been in the process. So I'm trying to understand what is behind this. Is it just the relationship or something was going on with Vella Finance?
Okay, so you have two options if you want to expand your capabilities. You either build
Okay.
from scratch
Okay.
or you buy.
Okay.
And there's no one size fits all. It's probably you looking at okay, if I build from scratch, I would not have it from day one. It's probably going to take a few months, maybe a few years. There'll be experimentations, there'll be some failures along the way. So if I buy, on the other hand, I'm getting a team that has been doing this thing for quite some time. We are hitting the ground running, in the words of our president, hitting the ground running from day one, right? And that is something that could be attractive for anybody who is doing an acquisition, right? So every business, I'm already using the word relationship, but you get the point. Like every business transaction is kind of driven by some relationship. You are not going to acquire the company and a founder that you hate.
It might be to kill
but
competition.
you would not do an acquihire because you hate
True though.
the founders. This is not succession where you make some very irrational moves. But yeah, the relationship definitely plays a part. Both founders say they've known each other for some time, and that means they understand how they work. They kind of are aligned on the vision. And I think something to point out is Carbon says we've been doing business loans for a while, but not at the standard that we want, right? And they believe that some of the capabilities that Vella Finance has built, especially around artificial intelligence, can help them with doing that. I don't know if you would have like questions on what specific capabilities I'm referring to. Yeah. Okay. So basically, Vella Finance has been using artificial intelligence. I know that you may sneaker
because
when you hear
because I
artificial
was like, okay,
intelligence.
spice it.
But they say they've been doing that for a while. And basically what it does now, or what it would do for Carbon customers, is they can get their transactions can be analyzed by artificial intelligence, and they can draw insights from it. So you may be making a lot of payments, or a lot of money may be passing through your account, but you don't have visibility on it. You don't really know what's happening. I mean, you have the high level overview, but you don't really know the insights. So could you be saving costs some way? Could you be cutting costs in some way? So I think this is what AI would help with. At least that's what they say they will be starting with. But of course, there are a lot of other applications in business banking that they may want to explore in the future.
Yeah, I'm wishing them well. Because Amari is in the house, in the building, I like to understand like the before we talk about other things, I would like to understand the legal ramifications around, because I'm a startup lawyer now. So the legal ramification around acquirers.
So it's deep. But you first of all have to look at what the initial structure for Vella Finance was, and if it allows for that level of acquisition and all that, right? But when it comes to acquisition, it's some boardroom work, back and forth, depending on what the type of acquisition is. what you see in the media is not what it is back end. It's a lot that happens, right?
Yeah.
What level of acquisition is it? Complete acquisition? Is it majority shareholding? What are the things? What role will the founders of Vella Finance play? What level of equity are they now going to have? Are they selling everything? Are they moving from being owner shareholders to becoming employee directors or consultants? So the entire gamut. But I think that what we should take from this, especially for the startup ecosystem and founders, is scaling. Many startup entrepreneurs or many entrepreneurs who are startup founders build businesses with the passion, with the understanding of the problem, but with very little view as to the magnitude of the market and the service they intend to provide and their ability to provide that service. And so when the market receives you, you now get into a situation where you're like, Abego, how do I do this? You know? And then you start looking for people who have the capacity.
To help you.
Why those people are looking for the grit, technical knowledge, and new age understanding. So it's a convenient marriage, right? If you look at carbon, right? You look at the people who have been, those guys have been in banking since they were babies, right? Their parents are veteran bankers. They've grown into an environment where, you know, it's a norm. I'm sure, you know, I said to one of them, I said, I'm sure you guys discuss banking at dinner. You know, he just laughed, right? But, you know, those years have been actively in banking, right? Through time, and understand the power of pivoting. That's one thing they've always done, right? Diamond Bank.
I trade.
Just at the time when you realize that, pivot. But the lesson to learn here is, as you build, one of the things you should start envisaging is your future. And so it's easier to now even curate your structure such that if you know that in the next 5 years, right, I'm collapsing into XYZ, or I'm going to be getting into a symbiotic relationship, or I'm building to be acquired. That works. But if you also look at the back end of this acquisition, is that the ultimate central vision may be watered down on the altar of a business decision.
Please consider that again.
The ultimate vision of the founders, the problem they've sought to solve by building that innovative solution, stands the risk of being watered down or even eliminated by a business decision. One independence that the ecosystem has in the tech and innovation space is that we don't sacrifice the problem-solving component of the innovative solutions we provide on the altar of anything, even business decisions. But that's different when you deal with the traditional business entities. Everything is about naira and kobo, and dollar and pound and euro, and the market and things around it, right? So you now stand that risk of, hey, this is not going to sell to the board. Let's tweak this. And by the time they tweak,
If lose focus,
you've lost the real essence of what you have built, right? Because part of the conversation will be, so when I sit in M&A meetings with clients and startups, one of the things I say, look, what's negotiable and what's not? And so when you agree on what's not negotiable, even in the long term, right, then the conversation is had neatly. So what you have is that we're beginning to have series of startup founder merchants who are providing unique solutions, right, that are being bought by traditional entities.
and they kill it.
But after celebrating these purchases, these mergers, these acquisitions, whatever interesting names.
Acquire.
Chigozire, man. People come up with, let's do an impact assessment. How many of them remain
What's this
true to the
about to be?
purpose? So really, what problem are we really solving?
That's
Money problem.
So it's an
it's a very
important
difficult balance.
yes. So it's an important conversation to have, while working on, because I know expansion is a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Ability to service the market is an even bigger deal, right? Which oftentimes startup founders don't have. But also, you will also find that a lot of them have been unable to scale into the market because of initial primary acts of indiscipline, waste, frivolous spending. Right? So if you
Should we
want,
go
and
into that?
I think that one of the conversations that you should have should be to now do a comparison between traditional business establishments and the startup business ecosystem.
I think that's a conversation I would like every opportunity I get, I try to compare what goes on.
Compare,
in those
for
two
instance,
words.
how Koshcharis built the Koshcharis brand from the scratch. Slot, right? Look at some of these entities and how they built from the scratch, from a small room to. So imagine if the phase. So today I stumbled on a video. I'll share it with you guys. Right? I stumbled on a video of Mark Zuckerberg sharing the Facebook idea in 2005. Right? Sharing the idea. What was the idea? Like, you meet people on campus. I've seen Bolu now. Bolu has a beard. And looking at Bolu. I want to get to know Bolu more. I go look him up on Facebook. Right? Oh, okay. Bolu likes dogs. Bolu eats a lot. And so when next I see Bolu, I'm like, okay, Bolu, let's go have pizza. Or let's go, right? Because you seem to know him more. Now, imagine if that idea, for the benefit of scaling, was bought over by, let's say, Sony Pictures, right? Or who are these people that do films?
The one with
Konica.
the lion head. Okay, Konica.
Right? These people that do these films,
okay.
Yes.
who didn't realize that a time was going to come when you were
Kodak.
going to Kodak,
Yes.
when you were going to move from film photography to digital photography. Right? So what if they had money and they said, no, let's buy it over so we can now start printing postcards. Right? Let's start producing postcards. Right? So what now happens is, if I find Bolu, I can now, make a postcard, right, and send to Bolu, or it becomes.
I can't imagine.
So what they are trying to do is modernize their market idea. That would have killed the Facebook vision.
So, I think startups don't make these decisions lightly.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. So so you would know that sitting here, anything I have the advantage of is that I have spoken to tons and tons of startup founders.
Yeah.
And many of them build businesses so that somebody can acquire them. So I say to them oftentimes, are you solving a problem, or are you positioning yourself for a purchase?
And it's good to define it from the beginning
So
so that you know
it's
where you are
okay.
going.
So if you say, look, I want to build a unique solution that I can sell to XYZ, right? That's fine.
Work towards it, yes.
I want to solve a problem for the larger good of the society.
That's fine.
Especially, you see this fintech space, right?
I mean, I actually think it makes perfect sense for you to build a fintech for acquisition right now. It makes perfect sense. Like, it's a perfect business decision.
Yeah.
So let me tell you, if you look at the traditional financial institutions, one of the things that you see is that they lack innovation.
Ouch.
They understand the market, and they are only innovating around market expansion.
To be safe.
Right? the value add they are bringing are how to make it easier for Bolu to bring out money from his pocket to give them, right? So you hardly see the traditional
That's the
financial
simplest.
institutions providing solutions that make your life easier. They make your spending or your saving or your whatever easier because it's aligned to their market philosophy and it's all about profit. But then you have a piggy vest that is incentivizing the saving culture to help you save more, make some money, give you a sense of ownership and accountability. Oh, well, I'm doing advance for this. But
Right,
then
I guess.
you're able to balance the value add.
I see my profit.
Do you understand me? So for them, they're identifying your problem, they are solving your problem, and then they're making some profit from it. A bank or a traditional financial institution is looking to increase its customer base, to expand its market, and to make money in the process. And so whatever value add they claim to bring is centered around what their objective is. So if you're building for them, that's okay. But if you're building for people and they buy you over, best believe that they will water down that value add you intend to give the people, which is your predominant selling point.
Yeah.
We've got to now train and create a crop of leaders in the ecosystem who are willing to go the long haul. Seek financing if you need to seek financing, right? Stay small longer because you have financial challenges for
Be a
expansion.
camel.
And then continue to grow. All these buyouts, sellouts, you guys have the data, right? So go and look at all these guys that have been bought out.
It depends. Okay, so I think what you can just leave the founders with is define your intention from the start.
Yeah.
Right? There's no judgment here. Just stick with what you decided. If you say it is for the better good of the community, don't go another 3 years and say, I'm tired, I want to make money now.
Or we need to expand.
We need to expand
and then
there's no
someone,
money.
someone
Yes,
needs
and
to
so
buy you out
you get.
and
So
all that.
just have a vision and stick to it. Thank you very much, Omari. That was
Very insightful.
But that does not mean let's not be too hard. That does not mean that there are also no genuine collaborations and acquisitions, right? Carbon, I will even say, is a startup, right? Both of them, maybe just from two ends of the stick, right? So this is not speaking directly to this transaction, but speaking generically to what is happening. And yes, there may be need for, they say 2 heads are better than one. I say 2 good heads, or 2 bad heads. Some currency, you know how many heads. But but oftentimes collaborations. So when it gets to the table of acquisition, the conversation has to be intentional, and 90% of the time they miss this conversation because the conversation is more financial. What am I getting for what I have built through time? This is what I have. So it's always a money decision. And we, Nifemi, Bolu, Chimgozirim, are not really in the mix when it gets to that table. It's about naira, kobo,
dollars,
interests, benefits, sit on the board, shareholder rights, and XYZ. And so that objective that led Bolu to build that Wagon app.
Idea.
Somebody already.
It's really not a key consideration for anybody on the table. Yes, it's a great idea. I want to propel it. I want to leverage on it. But so what happens is that when you buy, oftentimes the buyer now with ownership balkanizes, dissects to pick what he needs and discards what he doesn't need. And oftentimes, sometimes they will discard the main thing.
That's in the pain. I swear. Yes. Okay, so make the right decisions when it comes to collaboration and use Uyilo. Let them advise you. before you go and make those silly mistakes. Thank you very much for joining us in the studio today. And to our audience and listeners, I hope you've visited the Tech Point Africa website today. If you have not, you can go there to keep up with all the news that is going on in the African tech space and keep yourself up to date. We also have our newsletters still running, Tech Point Digest, Modern Workplace newsletter, Equity Merchant newsletter. Make sure to subscribe to them. You will see them pop up in any of those articles on our website when you read them. And don't forget to, if you're listening to us on Spotify, please drop a reaction, drop a review so that other listeners can also find us. And if you want to get more intimate, you can send us an email on podcast@techpoint.africa. Podcasts as not with S, podcast at techpoint.africa. Okay, I will hit this thing on your head. Please, no Yoruba slander here. Podcast at techpoint.africa. Please send us an email. We'd like to hear from you. And also, if you want to tell other people about Tech Point Africa podcast, where should you direct them to? Bolu?
Yes, for our audio listeners and you want to listen to the entire podcast episode, simply go to your podcast platform. So that's Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Hayat Radio, or anywhere else you get your podcast.
And type Tech Point Africa podcast, search for it, and you will find us. The color is blue. Thank you very much for listening to us today, and catch you next time, next week, Thursday. Bye.